Fight!
Round 11.
Hurry! Careful timing, we're gonna need it.
Activate your homing beacon when you're ready.
Into exile. I must go. Failed, I have.
You, Anakin. I have failed you.
I should have known the Jedi were plotting to take over.
It's over, Anakin. I have the high ground.
You underestimate my power!
You were the chosen one! It was said that you would destroy the Sith, not join them! I hate you! You were my brother, Anakin! I loved you!
So this is why I said fire was central to Anakin's story.
Mm-hmm.
So do you remember when Qui-Gon died and they had him burning in front of her, right? They showed Anakin's face. This is the death of Anakin as far as we know, because I don't think they refer to him as Anakin from this point on. Like, this is the last time he's officially Darth Vader.
Yeah, I like this scene. Yeah, I definitely like the end when you see Obi's like, you see he's conflicted, like, he's my brother, like, so yeah, it's definitely an emotional scene, and you can definitely see the death of Anakin and the rise of Darth Vader. So, I think for sure.
Any idea why he didn't finish him off? What do you
I think he assumed that he was just going to naturally die right here. Like there was nothing else for him to do.
He was on fire, like, and it wasn't like he was gonna like finish him off or nothing like that because he was on fire. And
I remember they should know better.
He was Padawan.
Yeah. Oh, you would think so, right? But because correct me if I'm wrong, but so when Darth Maul comes back after he's been cut in half by Kenobi, might I add, that's in between those two movies, right? So don't they know that just because you hack somebody up, if you don't see them dead, that doesn't mean that they're dead. Yeah. And they have the technology for prosthetic limbs. Everybody got a prosthetic. Everybody.
I just don't think that he probably foresaw Sidious
locating
him, especially since Yoda had been sent to deal with Sidious and to deal with him.
Yeah, and it doesn't like the show Obi-Wan Kenobi, like, isn't this the synopsis is Obi doesn't know that Darth Vader is alive. So yeah, and I think he thought he was gonna die in that fire right there. So I think, and then him being his Padawan, like, he doesn't want to finish him off because he still cares for him.
I mean, but he didn't mind hacking all three of his limbs.
He gave him no choice.
It was his limbs, or
he gave him no choice. I mean, what else is he supposed to do? I mean,
go all the way through with it.
And he told him, "You did this yourself.
He's too dangerous to live."
So I mean, yeah.
Is there?
I don't really see Obi-Wan as that type of Jedi either. Just like that would kill. Yeah, I don't see him as that type of. Maybe Windu, like yeah.
Oh yeah.
But Obi-Wan, I don't see him as that type of. You said what?
Dice them up.
Yeah, so.
But yeah, this one I just like because of it's the closing. I think it's a lot of symbolism. And then if the next scene is what I think it is, even more we get into that.
Fight!
Final round. Round 12.
Medically, she's completely healthy. For reasons we can't explain, we are losing her.
She's dying.
We need to operate quickly if we are to save the babies.
Babies.
She's carrying twins.
It's a go.
There's good in him. Still.
Can you hear me? Yes, Master. Where is Padme? It seems in your anger, you killed her.
I think this scene is pretty poetic because not only do you see the death of Anakin and the death of Padme, but you see the birth of Luke and Leia while Darth Vader is born
Exactly.
in this scene at the same time too. So I love this scene how basically people die and their offspring live.
The concurrent manifestations of that theme of life and death.
Yeah, I think that's dope, and I like the birth of Darth Vader. I think it's pretty cool. Yeah, I really like the actual overall of this actual movie, from the plot and the story, the directing. I think all aspects is better than the first two movies. And it definitely becomes fulfilling seeing Palpatine manipulate Anakin throughout the whole movie, and then him be like, "All right, save Padme. I'll go to the dark side. I'm with you," and then all of this happens. So it's kind of fulfilling that, okay, I understand why I had to sit through the first two movies to get to this. So it makes sense. So, yeah.
You get to see more of the hands-on puppeteering instead of the behind-the-curtain puppeteering.
Yeah, that's what I like.
I would have thought that Darth Vader's reaction would have been more extreme, given Padme's death just now.
Extreme, huh? Like what you thought he was going to do.
He would lash out more in anger, potentially at Palpatine.
I mean, he barely know how to walk
Yeah,
with the damn cybernetics. So I'm not, sounds good because the thing that got me for comparing the last scene and this scene is that, or the last scene we were watching, was that the entire fight with Obi-Wan, he didn't have the Sith eyes. And it wasn't until that he was decapitated and laying, there right at the lava bed that he took on the full Sith eyes. So it was very interesting. And then even right here, I don't think he had Sith eyes when they were putting the mask on him. So it's like that piece of Anakin is still there. And I guess
as we see later.
Yeah. Well, as he's getting, correct, as it comes to fruition later.
Mm-hmm.
But I think with the death of Padme, it more or less reaffirms the rebirth of Darth Vader. I mean, it's, like you said, it's definitely poetic ending.
I think Yoda, the reason, so that quote that I like so much, the fear the fear of loss leads you to the dark side. It's exactly what happened to Anakin, like to a T, because it drove him to ultimately be what killed Padme, essentially. I mean, because there's no other justification for her death aside from her being forced to.
I think she died of a broken heart.
Yeah.
That's what happened.
Yeah.
Because she just lost a little bit, but she was perfectly healthy.
And she said it. She was like, I can't go with you if you're going to be like this. The path you're going down, I can't do this. So you can tell that she was like, oh my God, what is happening? Like everything, my world just got turned upside down and right in front of me, and I didn't realize it.
Yeah, and the irony of everything is that his reason for joining the dark side immediately changed once he got the taste of, I guess you could say, like death. I guess he was killing everybody, and then when he's trying to, reconcile with Padme, the reason behind everything he's doing, it's to rule the empire, like to rule the galaxy. Whereas everything that had been, the center of their marriage has been more or less secretive. So, you're no longer thinking about just trying to save her, but now you're thinking like, okay, we can finally live in harmony with, without having to be secretive, which was completely unrealistic. Like,
but in the end, he just wanted control over the situation. He felt like he didn't have control of the situation, and with him being the leader of the empire or whatever, he felt like he could control life or death. Well, Padme dies, and basically other aspects too. I felt true.
But the irony is he hated politics. So I mean, he hinted at dictatorship being and Attack of Clones. He hinted at a dictatorship being the resolution to all of the problems within the Senate and the perceived corruption. But it's like he was the furthest thing from the ideal and the person that he chose to fornicate with and have children with was the furthest thing from furthest thing from a dictatorial mind. So very, very conflicted individual.
Yeah. Very conflicted. What was your favorite scene in this movie?
Man. I think my favorite scene in the movie is something that's not here. I really like the end of the movie when it's Palpatine and Darth Vader standing side by side watching the construction of the Death Star, because the Death Star has been subtly like planted in both movies 2 and 3. 2 on Geonosis when they're looking at it, and then 3 when it's very arrogant of Palpatine. But when Anakin is walking into the room to essentially to find out that Palpatine is the Sith Lord, he has the Death Star plans up and he's looking at them. So it's just so crazy to see that everything was always hidden in plain sight until you finally get to see the construction, because the Death Star itself is just so iconic from the the start of the Star Wars series and the original Star Wars with the destruction of Alderaan, and then the essential destruction of the Death Star just as it's about to destroy the the rebellion itself.
The Death Star is a spaceship.
Yeah. Well, it's like a space station that uses it is regulated in a sense, but it's like an unregulated kyber crystal. So they have this big kyber crystal, and they've learned to tap into it to where using its true raw, I think the word we'll use is like unrefined raw power, it can destroy planets. So it is a huge kyber crystal that is the source of energy for the Death Star's weapon system.
This movie is so loaded with epic scenes, but I will say the one that stood out the most for me, and that I would have to say my personal favorite is Grievous versus Obi-Wan. When Grievous is on the wheel bike, when they transition to that, and then Obi-Wan is chasing him with the lizard. Just because I don't know if that was per se the best scene, but it's the most memorable in my mind because that's how I remember as a child. And it was just amazing, just that fight sequence. And I like Grievous as well. Like I said, I don't know if I have something with bad guys that have multiple lightsabers. I always thought they were just really cool. But Grievous is another character who has a tremendous amount of depth to him. That if you look into it, like for example, he transition from a proud Kalish warrior to a techno-organic being that was in the service of the Sith. And so it's the ultimate tragedy for that one specific character. I guess in a lot of ways he's a lot in common with Darth Vader.
It just becomes a pawn instead of having the power that he once had.
Yeah.
Like he's sacrificing I guess you could say that pride that comes with being a servient of good to being a more powerful being with less authority under a Sith. Because he was always going to be a pawn. I think anyone that comes into the Ruler 2 when their Ruler 2 is already established, meaning that there's an already established master and apprentice, is more or less a pawn unless the apprentice can kill the master, which in this case really didn't happen until 3 movies later.
Yeah. But that was the scene that stood out the most to me.
Yeah, in conclusion, as far as this one, I definitely think it's better than the other two. For sure. It's probably definitely my favorite so far in the Star Wars episode. So
I think it's going to stay your favorite.
It is.
I think the storylines in 4, 5, and 6 are perfectly written, but we're talking about 70s and 80s. I don't know. I guess that's CGI back then. I don't know what. I'm not into movies.
Animatronics.
Yeah, that's
to a degree.
Yeah, whatever they were using back then.
Yeah.
The storyline is beautifully written for 4, 5, and 6, but the 3 has the perfect storyline mixed with the perfect visuals and integration of modern technology, and I think it's beautiful.
This is the pinnacle of a Star Wars production.
I kind of figured because it's the last one with George Lucas, and it's part of the original. Well, not the original trilogy, but the prequel trilogy. So.
Now,
It came in 2005. So.
burning question. I know that Jar Jar Binks is your least favorite character after 3 films. Who is your favorite character?
Probably young Anakin.
Young Anakin?
Yeah.
How young? You saying when he was first?
I like Jake Lloyd Anakin, but I'd like him. Last episode Anakin. Last episode Anakin really pissed me off because of the dialogue.
I thought you were going to say the braid.
Well,
I was like, damn it, Job, I'm with you.
Yeah, I did see a lot of people didn't like that too, but just the dialogue I didn't like. But in this movie, I definitely liked him and his switch to the dark side. So he's I would say he's my favorite character.
Anakin?
Yeah, Anakin for sure.
What about yourself?
You go with Anakin too?
Nah, no way.
Oh, of course.
Well, no. So my favorite character in the Star Wars universe is always going to be Jango Fett.
Exactly.
But my favorite out of the prequels is actually Obi-Wan. And I think Obi-Wan does not get enough credit for his evolution because you see 3 iterations of his mastery. You see him being the Padawan where, he's conflicted as a Padawan because of Qui-Gon's loose teachings and, they are, I don't want to say in contradiction of the Jedi Order, but they are a bit more abstract in sense of Qui-Gon being more open to emotions and things of that nature and, the will of the Force. Whereas in Episode 2, we see a lot more of the Master where he's like struggling to cope with such an errant Padawan in Anakin. And, then we see the progression into Episode 3 where he accepts Anakin for who he is, and it's kind of like he shakes his head, but he realizes that this is the final product of Anakin that we're stuck with.
Yeah.
And, you really do see his, granted, I guess Dooku is just, he has Obi-Wan's card in every sense of the way. Like, he gets dusted aside easily when it comes to Dooku, but it goes to show that, like, his true mastery was on display, not only when he fought Grievous in this, but, when he fought Anakin as well, because the Grievous battle, even though we didn't show it, it is one of those that shows his true combative skills where he can fight even without the lightsaber. He's very quick on his feet, which is, synonymous with his rank as a general in the Republic. But also when he fought Anakin. Granted, this is someone who trained since he was 10 years old, but they didn't have the same style. Like Qui-Gon always made sure that, or always trained Obi-Wan in the the basic forms of combat, and he didn't go into the other types of lightsaber duelist skills. Whereas Anakin had a bit more, as we said, aggressive to where he was an architect in his form, but he was he was subject to, I guess you could say, as to the arrogance that comes with being the quote unquote chosen one, and subject to manipulation. So, Obi-Wan will be my favorite. There's clear progression with him. What about you?
That's an interesting choice. Because honestly, I have a newfound respect after watching these again of Obi-Wan, because he was like one of the least interesting characters in my estimation growing up.
Yes.
He was just cool name, but to me he was just so boring. And I kind of take that back. I don't think there are any of the real bad characters. There are definitely some that have a lot more depth and elaboration to them. But I mean, I would just I'm gonna stick with my god, Darth Maul, and it's not for some character development.
In the franchise, prequels for like 7 minutes total.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, that's my guy.
That's what I'm saying. It's just he, like for the same reason, like the nostalgia. Maybe to step outside of that box, I would have to say, I would say Yoda. To step outside of the nostalgia box and just be objective for a moment, I would say Yoda. Because, like I said earlier about that one specific quote, the wisdom that he imparts throughout the series, like anytime he speaks, you could abstract, you could take it out of a George Lucas film and just listen to it. And it's something that can resonate with you on a personal level. Yeah. And it's not something that's beating you over the head with a moral or some kind of story like, oh, do unto others as you want them to do to you. It's not doing that kind of thing. This is legit wisdom imparted into a compelling narrative coming from Yoda, and he's like, even down to him as a character, like you don't see him change much because he's ascended to like the peak of what it is to be a Jedi. I would argue that he's the head of the council, even though there isn't technically a head of the council, right?
Yeah, he's a grandmaster.
Yeah. Oh, so he is. So he's really deceptive. I think, Josh, you were really impressed when he first hobbled along with that cane. And then he just whipped out his lightsaber and he was doing all these flips. How'd you need the cane? Yeah. But he's always he's very crafty, quick-witted, but he has that wisdom. It's like seldom, if ever, does Yoda misstep. And so for those reasons, I would probably have to say that he's my favorite character from the prequels, if I had to go with logical reasoning as opposed to nostalgia.
Yeah, I was thinking about Yoda. I probably would like to see him more in the first movie, but he was good. I liked him, and probably the same thing with Windu. I probably would want to see him more, like you said. If you had more about Windu series, like instead of Obi-Wan, then that would be more interesting.
Because Obi-Wan was front and center for 3 movies.
Yeah. And that's why I say Obi-Wan. Like I could easily say Palpatine, but that's because of the expanded universe and novels that I've listened to. But I think Obi-Wan was abundantly clear. Like you saw a clear character progression, similar, probably more than Anakin's character progression.
I would argue with yeah.
Like he was very, very clear. Like Star Wars, Obi-Wan is a main character, but he's not the main protagonist.
That's why they call it the Skywalker saga. Yeah. It's not the Kenobi saga.
Yeah. So, but his character development is, the most substantial, and the prequels is called the Skywalker. The whole thing.
Yeah.
Oh, the whole thing.
1 through 9.
Oh.
Like with Star Wars. Yeah, that's the Skywalker saga.
So there could be potentially other sagas other than.
Could be.
Oh, okay. Okay. Yeah. Any final thoughts on the movie as a whole? Because I think the other thing, of course, the score by John Wayne.
And that's where I was thinking to myself, I never paid attention to the score, and I was a musical kid. I played the alto sax. I loved playing the Star Wars intro theme on the alto sax, but I never paid attention to the score and how immersive it is. You literally get when Padme's in distress talking, a more somber tone, and then when Anakin, taps into Anakin and then taps into Darth Vader, the score reflects it. So to listen to it, maybe if you set up in I want to say a movie theater, but if you were set up in a situation where you had a nice sound bar and subwoofer, to be able to, even maybe room soundproof, to be able to feel the score emotionally as it takes you through the different emotions, man. I think it makes it a more immersive experience. Because if you're just watching it, like it's like okay.
I would say, to the point of the score here is so effective. I usually don't care about the score much. It's an accent piece, but in this instance, I feel like it's so expertly done. This is a film that you could watch on silent, so no dialogue, but just the score playing and have the actual action going on, and it accurately conveys what's going on. Yeah, that's what a good score does. Yeah. That's how I would assess whether or not it's effective or not. And I think that does an excellent job. Like it does to your point when you have the flickers of, okay, this is Anakin, this is Darth Vader. It does it to the second. It's like in the very micro reactions that the characters have, the score will change, and then it'll flip right back to something else. And
I don't know if you guys noticed it, but this is not the first movie it's happened. Like I've heard it. Yeah, Attack of the Clones has happened when he killed the Tusken Raiders. Is what I remember. Like, the Darth Vader theme played a little bit.
Did you catch it earlier too? Like when they were talking about, it was something random. They weren't talking about him mastering the Tusken Raiders, but the sound of like the Tuskens was in one of the scores. Did you hear that?
I think I did.
Yeah. It was just to me that was kind of out of place.
Was it during the scene where he was like remembering, like, or hearing Palpatine's voice? Was it that scene?
I don't think so.
Oh, okay. Then
I'll have to watch it again.
Okay.
No, I didn't really pay attention to the score. I have not paid attention to the score in any of the previous times of me watching it, but I've never really listened intently with headphones the way we're listening intently right now. So I think once you start listening with intent and you're like paying attention, okay, I'm starting to catch it, and then you kind of like relax, sit back into your seat, and you're just present to how the correlating, score and the scene are flowing. Like it's something that you kind of just get immersed in. Like it makes me want to go back and rewatch 1 through 6 just for the sake of catching, those like we were saying, those transitions between the score and the emotional feel that you'll get with each score and how it reflects the character who's talking, because it was very, very, it's very masterful. That's the easiest way I can say it. It's very masterful.
And then the action is another highlight I have, because it's like non-stop action from the beginning to throughout the movie, and then you end with a cool lightsaber battle between Obi-Wan and Anakin. So
it doesn't feel like a almost 2.5 hour movie. It's the action is spaced out extremely well, and it's very rewarding.
Yeah.
And it doesn't leave you like, it's not like a wet blanket at the end of the movie on a fire. Yeah. Like it lets you know what happens next. Like for example, the birth of Darth Vader and going into 4, 5, and 6, and it's a rewarding payoff essentially.
On just say like an abstract thought.
Sure.
I always think. That's not even always think. I think the correlation that I'm making between like Dooku and Obi-Wan is Dooku trained Qui-Gon, Qui-Gon trained Obi-Wan. I don't think that Obi-Wan could ever beat Dooku just because of that premise itself. That Dooku trained the swordsman and Qui-Gon, which trains the swordsman, and Obi-Wan. Mm-hmm. And Qui-Gon only trained Obi-Wan in the most basic forms. Whereas we see, as you said numerous times, like Dooku was a master swordsman. So he was he was always going to have Obi-Wan's number, whereas Obi-Wan didn't train Anakin in the basics. It was more, or he trained him in the basics, but he didn't limit him to just the basics the way Qui-Gon had limited him to just the basics. So when it came to, Dooku and Anakin fighting, it was such a, more entertaining or, different fight than what we're seeing with Obi-Wan just getting quickly dusted aside in both fights. And then it just goes to show how underrated, though, Obi-Wan's, swordsmanship is, because, when they're, it's that cool scene with when they're just matching each other. Like, you force push, I force push. You're twirling and shit at the same time. And then we, clash up. Like, that's essentially like we're at a stalemate, and it becomes, okay, he's not going to kill me with this lightsaber. I'm not going to kill him with my lightsaber. The next turn in this battle is going to be a mental, a mental move. It's going to be a move where, the general is schooling the commander and, essentially in this case. And I do think their ranks are exactly that. I think he was Commander Skywalker and it was General Kenobi. He literally, was like, okay, I need to find the next, move that is going to be the checkmate, the equivalent of my checkmate. And, it was perfectly executed with, in the midst of battle when Anakin is only focused on this one aspect, Obi-Wan quickly glances to the side and sees the little ridge and jumps to it immediately. And it's just, it goes to show, even in, real life, the need for, you can be very skilled like Floyd Mayweather, for example, and your defensive Philly show, also with your hands as well, but the mental aspect, the needing to be disciplined and composed at any given moment, which is something that he struggled with, Obi-Wan, in the first movie where, Qui-Gon is able to meditate in battle. But as you guys saw, in the opening film or the opening scene of episode 1, Obi-Wan is a very anxious character. Being able to meditate in the midst of battle is an impossible task for him. But the ability to meditate during combat allows you to see, numerous opportunities. And that just goes to show, why he is my favorite character in the prequels outside of just, my favoritism towards Jango Fett. Because it just shows a clear upward trajectory as far as his progression goes, to where Anakin is more or less like an inverted V. Like he quickly progresses to this all-powerful being, and then he just degresses in the sense off of his morality. Like he's becoming more powerful, but his morality is just tanking as he's becoming more powerful.
When you said that the battle was going to be won by strategy and not master the force or by strength, so the strategic switch was when Obi-Wan said that I have the high ground.
Yeah.
And so essentially what that indicated to Anakin was Obi-Wan was trying to say that you can't win now. I had the advantage.
Yes.
And that made Anakin is, now I have to show you. And so that's
he
what
was fighting off of,
at
this point, Anakin is fighting off of pure emotion instead of logic.
Yeah.
Because he didn't have to try and jump over him to make an emphasis that, no, I can supersede your high ground and then, force push you into the lava or, decapitate you. Like, he could have jumped to the side. Like, it was a long lava or a long ridge or lava bed. And there was no need for him to do that. It was pure arrogance to show off his acrobatic skills. And I mean, he paid for it literally with 3 of his limbs. He lost his left arm from the elbow down, and he lost both his legs. I mean, he's a full-blown cybernetic now. Like, even his little transpirator box in the middle of his chest, like, he is 100%. Well, I can't say 100% because he still has, organs and things of that nature. But, I mean, he's lost all of his natural senses as far as being able to touch and feel.
He can't live without technical support.
Yes.
Technological support. Technical support sounds like he has like a power outage or something. His Wi-Fi is not working.
He has to call customer service on his transpirator. Have you tried rebooting?
Oh my
Just unplug for 30 seconds and then plug it back in. You'll be fine.
All right, then. If you guys like the movie review, don't forget to hit the like button. We're going to see you guys in the next match. Peace.